I'm delighted to be with you here this evening. I hope you're going to be able to understand my accent. Obviously, I come from Australia, and not many Americans, let alone Russian people, know anything about Australia. Australia's landmass is the same size as the United States, but America has 300 million people. Australia only has 20 million people. We have the largest wild camel population in the world, the largest wild horse population in the world, the largest wild goat, pig, crocodile, and water buffalo population in the world, and of course the largest kangaroo population in the world. I'm not sure what they have told you about my life, so I should give you some information. First of all, I'm 74 years of age. My wife and I have been married for 52 years to each other. We have 3 children and 8 grandchildren who think I'm the 4th member of the Trinity. I've never gone through formal schooling. I've never had the disadvantage of going to university. I came from a 3rd generation welfare recipient family. I had 4 fathers and 2 mothers, and most of my relatives had free boarding with the King of England, which meant they were in jail. My ambition in life was to be flyweight boxing champion of the world. I'd had a fight on every street corner. At 26 years of age, I was an illiterate bricklayer and stonemason. I had never passed a grade at school. So at 26 years of age, I could not articulate words. I had great problems in comprehension. But on May the 25th, 1959, I went along to a Billy Graham crusade, and when I heard the gospel in clear terms for the first time, I suddenly realized I was equal with all men before God, and I reasoned that if I was equal with all men before God, I no need to accept inequality with anyone. I was a son of a king. And I wish you could know the difference that makes. At 26 years of age, God gave me 2 dreams as a young man 47 years ago. One was to see how much money one human being could give away in their lifetime. Now, we were poor. We weren't ordinarily poor. We had to reach up to touch bottom. And I wasn't able to pull together any kind of plan. And this is what I did. I went and purchased 3 dictionaries. I put one next to my bed. I put one in the toilet. That's a good place to read. And I put one in my excuse for a motor car. Now, I need to tell you about this motor car. It was a 1937 Ford V8 Clubman sedan that had been rolled 3 times. The hood was all crushed in. We kept the doors on with wire. All the glass was gone. And it wasn't the gasoline that bothered me, it was how much oil this confounded thing used. If I drove it very carefully, I could get 14 miles to the gallon of oil. And if anyone showed any disrespect for my motor car, I would stop it in the middle of the traffic. I would let it back up behind me. And then when enough motor cars came behind, I'd put my foot on the clutch, then I'd put it on the accelerator, and I would baptize them in oil. I went through those dictionaries frontwards and then backwards until I understood every single word. And then I read 2,000 biographies. I then studied law, accountancy, philosophy, theology, modern ancient history, politics, and economics. I found the mind was like a muscle and it could be developed. And then I went into business. And I lost everything. That'll clear your sinuses. I paid it back and went into business a second time. Lost it again. You learn nothing new from the second kick from a horse. I paid it back and I was going into business the third time. My wife said to me, "Peter, just get a job." I said, "I won't get a job." She said, "Why not?" I said, "Because job stands for just over broke. And I don't want to be broke." She said, "Well, nothing is happening. You're spending all this money on books and tapes, and we're getting poorer and poorer." She said, "Nothing is happening. Just get a job." Well, on our 33rd wedding anniversary, I bought her a 49-carat opal necklace with 33 diamonds on it. This thing is so big, when she walks, she has to walk like that. I said, "You haven't complained about the books and tapes I bought lately." Well, after going broke the third time, I paid it back each time. I then went into business a fourth time and built one of the largest real estate corporations in Australia of its kind, with offices in Singapore and Hong Kong. We sold those out some years ago. Today, our businesses extend right around the world. We're very unusual in business. We have no overdrafts, no loans, no mortgages anywhere in the world. We are the only corporation on the face of the earth that has its own private currency. We're the only family in the world that has its own private bullion bank. We did 2 films on economics 8 years ago and submitted it to the Video and Film Festival in Chicago against General Motors, against Rolls-Royce, against DuPont, all the major corporations of the world. We won the gold for directorship and the silver for content. It catapulted us up in the top 10% of advisors globally in the world on economics. And I'm going to share some comments tonight to you and some principles tonight that are going to help you to go into business and win every single time. I am tired of Christians being broke. It's time for us to take back the economics. It's time for us to win again. And I'm going to give you some principles that will show you how to do that. I need to tell you something else that you might find interesting. One company here in America, in Texas, paid me $1 million for 15 minutes advice. Texans are not that smart. An Australian company paid me $1 million just for advice. And I'm going to share some concepts with you tonight and again tomorrow night that'll show you how to go into business and win every time. The second thing that God asked me to do as a young man was to change the world for 300 years. I'm sure that some of you think that's a crazy comment to make. How can one person change the world in their lifetime? Well, let me hasten to remind you, in biblical times, Abraham changed the world in his lifetime. Moses changed the world in his lifetime. David changed the world in his lifetime. Gideon changed the world in his lifetime. In more modern times, a man called Mahatma Gandhi, with what he called Satyagraha, which was soul force. He broke the chain of colonial power. He changed the world in his lifetime. Henry Ford changed the world in his lifetime when he set the world moving the automobile, and Roger Bannister changed the world in his lifetime when he ran the first 4-minute mile, and he proved that the efforts of human endeavor are yet to come. Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, the last great English bulldog. He changed the world during the Battle of Britain when he sent those young men up in those Spitfire planes that caused him to say, "Never before in the field of human conflict as so many owed so much to so few. So let us brace ourselves to our duties and so bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth would last for 1,000 years, men would still say this: This was their finest hour. He changed the world in his lifetime. Bach and Beethoven changed the world in their lifetime as they expanded our consciousness in the area of symphony and song. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he changed the world when there on Capitol Hill, before the television audience of the world, when he gave that famous speech that said, "I have a dream." He said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today." And my wife and I have traveled 12,000 miles to ask you a very simple question. I hope it haunts you for the rest of your life. It's the question that Joseph's father asked his son when he said, "My son, what is this dream that you have? What is this dream that you have?" For many of you, it was alive and well when you were a little younger. You'd go for a swim at the beach and lay in the warm sand. You'd stand in front of a wood fire on a cold winter's night or under the starry heavens of a hot summer night, and you would do what men and women in all ages have done. You would contrast that picture of what you are against what you would like to become. Tonight, as we share some concepts in success, toward the end we're going to open it for questions, and you can ask any question you want. Now, if it was a black church and this was African Americans, we wouldn't finish here till 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. They ask questions all night and all day if you let them. So I'm going to share some concepts with you, and then tomorrow night we're going to get 2 men and 2 women out of the audience. We're going to bring them up here on the platform, and I'm going to set their life goals for them from a biblical perspective and show them how to hit it on target. So you start thinking about whether or not tomorrow night you might like to volunteer. Let me tell you that if you had to do this in the World Centre of Entrepreneurial Studies, one of the corporations I own, it could cost you up to $20,000 to have that done. Now, if you come up as a volunteer tomorrow night, you'll never be the same again. You may be better, you may be worse, but you'll never be the same again. You see, growth, success, call it whatever you like to call it, depend upon 3 very simple factors. Firstly, the economic climate of the times in which we live. We live in one of the most prosperous times in the history of the human race. There has never been another time in history when a civilization has lived in the prosperity that we live in here today, whether it's in America or Australia. The prosperity that we have is unique in history. As I walk up and down in my international headquarters, I have 6,000 years of history on my office wall, and I could not think of another time that I would sooner be alive. So the economic climate of the times in which we live. Secondly, what you personally are prepared to do as a service to others. Many of you don't seem to understand that if you've got a passport, you can go around the world, and there are opportunities that you cannot believe in other countries, that you can take things from here and trade with that they do not have there. And you can bring back things from there that they do not have here in the United States of America. Thirdly, what you are personally willing to sacrifice along the way. And let me tell you, you don't have to lose your family. That's a lie of the devil. Men, you don't have to lose your wives. You don't have to lose your children. My grandchildren are so close to me that if I had a headache, they could take an aspirin and I would feel fine. Recently, my daughter said to me, "Poppy, you're spending too much money on the grandchildren." My grandson Aaron said, "Mum, leave Poppy alone, he knows his job."